I hadn't been to Liam's house in almost a year. We used to have sleepovers constantly, middle school, high school, even the first year of college. But lately, with life getting in the way, we'd just fallen out of that old routine. So when he invited me over to crash after a small get-together at his place, I didn't think twice. Just like old times, right? Only, it wasn't. And it wasn't Liam who made it different. His dad did. The night started off normal enough. Just a few of us hanging out in his basement den, cheap beer, a few board games, and Liam roasting me for still not having seen half the Marvel movies. Around 1:30 a.m., the last guest trickled out, and I helped him clean up the pizza boxes and beer cans. "You cool to crash in the guest room?" he asked, yawning as he tossed a crumpled napkin toward the trash can and missed by a mile. "Yeah, of course," I said. "Better than Ubering back across town." He nodded and stretched his arms behind his head, his hoodie riding up slightly. "Bathroom's still at the end of the hall. Fresh towels should be in there too. My dad's probably asleep already, so just try not to wake him." I smiled. Wasn't planning to serenade the house or anything. Liam smirked and gave me a lazy fist bump. "Good night, loser." "Night, nerd." I brushed my teeth, slipped into an old t-shirt and shorts, and crashed into the surprisingly comfy guest bed. The sheets smelled faintly like fabric softener, and the house was quiet except for the hum of the HVAC. I didn't know what time it was when I woke up. At first, I thought I was dreaming, but when I shifted slightly and felt the dip in the mattress like someone had just sat down beside me, I knew I wasn't alone. Still groggy, I opened my eyes. There was a figure sitting on the edge of the bed, facing slightly away from me, silhouetted by the faint blue glow from the hallway nightlight. At first, I thought it was Liam. Maybe he needed something? But then I heard the voice. Low, calm, too deep to be his. "Hey," it said, quiet but clear. "Didn't mean to scare you." My body froze. "Mr. Carter?" "Yeah," he replied, still not looking at me. "Sorry. I know this is weird. I just wasn't sure if you were okay." I sat up slowly, heart starting to pound in my chest. "I'm fine. Just wasn't expecting anyone in the room." He finally turned his head. His face was in partial shadow, but I could see the outline of his jaw, the slight stubble along it. He looked tired, or maybe just conflicted. "I heard something," he said. "Thought maybe Liam had come in here. Guess I was half asleep myself." I nodded slowly. "No, it's just me. Sorry if I made noise." He shook his head. "Not your fault." For a moment, he just sat there, not moving. The room felt smaller somehow. Warmer. "I remember when you two were kids," he said, almost absently. "Always crashing on the living room floor. Blankets, video games, wrappers everywhere." I gave a soft laugh. "Yeah, we were animals." "You're not kids anymore," he said. His tone shifted a little. Something quieter. Closer. I didn't respond. Because, what do you say to that? He stood then, slowly, like he wasn't sure if he should. "Sorry again. Didn't mean to intrude." "No, it's okay," I said quickly. Too quickly. "Just caught me off guard." He paused by the door, hand on the frame. "If you need anything, I'm down the hall." "Thanks," I said. He nodded once, then left, and I lay back down, staring at the ceiling, adrenaline buzzing through me. My brain tried to make sense of it, tried to rationalize it, but I couldn't ignore the way he'd looked at me before he walked out, like he was seeing me for the first time. I didn't fall back asleep. I tried. I shifted around, flipped the pillow, pulled the blanket up to my chin. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could think about was Mr. Carter sitting on the edge of the bed. The weight of him. His voice. That moment when he said, "You're not kids anymore." It wasn't just the words, it was how he said it. The way his voice dipped slightly at the end, like it meant more than he let on. The house was dead quiet, save for the occasional creak of pipes or a car passing outside. I stared at the ceiling for what felt like an hour, replaying the whole thing on loop. I told myself he'd just been half asleep. Maybe he thought he was checking on Liam. Maybe it was just a concerned dad moment that I was overanalyzing. But that look? That wasn't nothing. Eventually, I gave up on sleep and slipped out of bed to grab some water. The kitchen was dark, but I knew the layout well enough not to need the lights. I moved quietly, barefoot on the cool tile floor, grabbed a glass from the cabinet, and filled it from the fridge dispenser. And that's when I heard it. A soft creak behind me. I turned, glass halfway to my lips. Mr. Carter was there again, this time standing in the doorway to the kitchen. He looked like he hadn't moved from earlier. Same faded t-shirt, same gray sweatpants, same tired eyes. Except now there was something undeniably vulnerable about him. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. I shook my head. "Too wired, I guess." He nodded, stepping further into the room. "Yeah. Happens to me sometimes. Especially when the house is too quiet." I watched him move to the counter and grab a glass for himself. His movements were slow, unhurried, like this late-night moment was normal. Casual. But it wasn't. At least not to me. He filled his glass, then leaned back against the counter, facing me. "Liam mentioned you're studying graphic design?" he asked. "Yeah, final year." I sipped my water, grateful for the distraction. He nodded again. "That's good. You always seemed creative. I remember you used to draw those crazy cartoons when you and Liam were kids." I smiled at that. "Still do, just slightly better now." He chuckled softly. The sound settled something in me, but also made my heart skip a beat. Because it was warm. Familiar, like the old Mr. Carter one remembered, but somehow different now. Like he saw me differently too. There was a pause. Then he said, "You've really grown into yourself. Not just physically, I mean, you carry yourself differently now." That made me hesitate. I set my glass down a little too firmly on the counter. "Thanks," I said, trying to keep it light. He held my gaze for a moment, too long before glancing down. "Sorry, I'm probably overstepping." "Long day. Mine's wandering." "It's okay," I said, voice low. "I just didn't expect you to be up." He half smiled. "Didn't expect to find you awake either." The silence between us stretched again, not uncomfortable, but thick, charged. Then he took a step forward. Not much, just enough that I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. Something warm, woodsy. I didn't move. His eyes met mine again. "I should let you get back to bed," he said quietly. "Yeah," I whispered, though my feet stayed planted. He hesitated, just for a second, and then his hand brushed lightly against my arm as he passed me. Barely a touch. Could have been nothing. But it wasn't. Because his fingers lingered. And I swear, for the briefest moment, he stopped behind me before moving on. I didn't turn around, didn't say anything. Just stood there, with my heart pounding in my ears, trying to remember how to breathe. Back in the guest room, I lay on top of the covers this time, staring at the ceiling, body still buzzing from that brief, ghost-like touch. His fingers had brushed just above my elbow. That was it, nothing dramatic. But there was something unmistakable in the way it happened, like he meant for me to feel it. Like it wasn't just incidental, I didn't know what to make of it. I wasn't some naive kid anymore. I'd been with guys, I'd read signals, I'd missed a few too. But this felt like something that hovered on the edge, unspoken, unfinished. It wasn't just him showing up in the room earlier. It wasn't just the compliment, or how he looked at me. It was all of it together. And for the first time, I started wondering what exactly was going through Mr. Carter's head tonight. Eventually, my eyes grew heavy. The kind of tired that doesn't come from comfort, but from exhaustion layered over confusion. I didn't even realize I'd drifted off until I woke up to the sound of a soft knock. Tap. Tap. I sat up, heart instantly alert. The door creaked open just an inch. "Sorry," came the familiar voice. "Didn't mean to wake you, just wanted to check something." He stepped in before I could respond. Mr. Carter was barefoot now, his t-shirt clinging slightly to his chest, like he'd been outside for a bit. He didn't turn on the light, just walked in slow, the hallway glow framing his shoulders. I blinked, still half asleep, trying to shake off the fog. "Everything okay?" He nodded, but didn't say anything at first. He was standing near the foot of the bed now, looking down at me, but not in a way that felt paternal. "Not tonight." "You looked cold earlier," he said finally. "Didn't think you had a blanket." I glanced down. The blanket was half on the floor, kicked off in my sleep. "Oh," I said dumbly. "Guess I moved around too much." He took another step closer. "I can grab another if you want," he offered, voice soft. "It's okay," I said, meeting his gaze in the dim light. "I'm fine." He didn't move. He just watched me, eyes unreadable but locked onto mine like he was trying to make a decision. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he said, "You ever feel like you can't sleep because there's something unresolved in your head?" I swallowed. "Yeah," I replied, just as softly. "Same," he said. The air between us shifted again, thick with tension, curiosity, and a shared silence that pulsed like a second heartbeat. He let out a breath and ran a hand through his hair. I should go back to bed. But he didn't. He sat down on the edge of the bed again, just like earlier, his weight dipping the mattress, the room tilting ever so slightly, and this time he looked directly at me. "There's something I probably shouldn't say," he murmured, "but I think I'm going to say it anyway." My mouth was dry. "Oh, okay," I said, unsure if I should be nervous or expectant. "I don't know what this is," he continued, voice low even, like he was keeping it together with effort. "But when I saw you tonight, walking through this house like you belonged here, it kind of caught me off guard." He laughed, just barely. "You're not a kid anymore, and I'm not blind." That made my heart skip. I didn't know what to say. He kept going. "If this is weird, I get it. Something about tonight, you being here, it brought something up. Something I didn't expect." I stared at him, my brain catching up one word at a time. Mr. Carter was, what, confessing? Flirting? Having some kind of late-night identity crisis? I opened my mouth, then shut it. And then I said the only thing that felt honest. "You're not the only one who feels that way." His eyes flicked up fast. I could see the pulse in his neck. His hand moved slightly on the bed, his fingertips barely brushing the edge of the blanket I'd kicked off earlier. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Would it be okay if I stayed here, just for a bit?" I knew what he meant. He wasn't asking for anything. Not really. He just didn't want to be alone tonight. And neither did I. "Yeah," I said quietly, "you can stay." He didn't get under the covers. He just sat there on the edge of the bed for a few minutes, quiet, hands resting on his thighs like he was still debating whether staying was a good idea. I could feel the weight of his presence in the room, the slow, steady rhythm of his breathing, the slight creak of the mattress under him. It wasn't awkward, exactly. Just full. Like everything that hadn't been said was humming between us, heavy and electric. "You sure?" he asked, breaking the silence. "About me staying?" "Yeah," I said. My voice came out low, steadier than I expected. "I mean, I'm not sleeping much anyway." That got a small smile out of him. He exhaled through his nose, then leaned back slightly on his hands, like he was finally settling in. Not relaxing, not yet, but testing the idea. "I haven't done this in a long time," he said after a while. "Done what?" "Let myself get close to someone. Let my guard down, even a little." I didn't say anything, just watched him. The way the soft blue light from the hall framed his face, the lines at the corners of his eyes, the slight pinch in his brows like he was trying hard not to overthink whatever this was turning into. "I guess I didn't expect it to happen like this," he added. "With me?" I asked gently. He nodded once. "Yeah, not because of anything you've done, but because I've spent so long being careful, especially with Liam around. That brought a twinge of guilt. But I also understood. He turned his head, eyes meeting mine. You always seemed like the grounded one, the kid who kept Liam from blowing stuff up. I smiled faintly. That's probably true. He tilted his head slightly. But you're not a kid now. There was a pause. Neither of us moved. And then, without thinking too hard, I reached out. Just a little. My hand rested beside his on the mattress. Not touching, but close enough that he'd have to make a choice. He didn't pull away. Instead, his pinky slowly curled inward, brushing against mine. It was the softest contact imaginable. Barely there, but it sent a current through my whole body. We sat like that for a long beat. I should probably be freaking out, he said finally, voice barely above a whisper. Are you? He shook his head once. No. That's the strange part. I swallowed. Maybe it's not strange. He looked at me again. Really looked. You're okay with this? Whatever this is? I nodded. I'm not expecting anything. But yeah, I'm okay. He studied my face, and then something in him softened, like a tension he'd been holding for years just uncoiled all at once. Can I lie down? He asked quietly. I didn't trust my voice, so I just pulled the blanket aside. He slid in slowly, careful not to touch me at first. He lay on his back, one arm under his head, staring up at the ceiling like I had been earlier. I mirrored him, the space between us small but still there, intentional. After a few minutes, I turned my head. He was already looking at me. We didn't speak. We just kept breathing, in sync, slowly, like we were both learning how to be in this moment without saying too much. Eventually, his hand found mine beneath the blanket. No hesitation this time, just fingers interlacing quietly in the dark. And that was it. That was how I fell asleep. Not tangled up, not kissing. Just lying side by side in silence, his hand in mine. The next morning, sunlight crept through the cracks in the blinds, casting soft golden streaks across the walls. For a moment, I forgot where I was. My body was warm, tucked under the blanket, and something heavy rested against my side. Then I remembered. His hand was still in mine. Mr. Carter, Liam's dad, was still lying next to me. Neither of us had moved much during the night. His body was turned slightly toward mine, our arms gently touching under the covers. I could feel the heat of him beside me, his breathing slow and even, like he hadn't stirred since falling asleep. It didn't feel wrong. If anything, it felt peaceful. Quiet in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. I stayed like that for a while, eyes open, heart steady. I wasn't panicking. I wasn't anxious. I just kept thinking, how did we get here? But I didn't want to rewind it. I didn't want to untangle anything. Eventually, he stirred. A small sigh escaped his lips before his eyes blinked open, adjusting to the morning light. He didn't jolt or freak out. He just turned his head and looked at me, eyes still hazy with sleep. "Morning," he said, voice rough and low. "Hey," I replied, equally quiet. He looked down at our hands, still joined under the blanket, then back up at me. "Guess that wasn't a dream," I smirked. "Nope, definitely real." He let out a short breath, not quite a laugh, but close. "How do you feel?" I thought about that. "Good," a little surprised, but not confused. He nodded slowly, processing. Then he said, "I didn't mean to cross a line. Last night, I don't know what came over me. I haven't felt..." He cut himself off, eyes closing for a beat. I haven't let myself be that honest in a long time. "I'm not upset," I said. "You didn't force anything. You asked." I said yes. He met my eyes again. "You sure? I'm here, aren't I?" He let that sit for a moment. Then, finally, he smiled. A small, real one. You always were more mature than the other kids. I rolled my eyes. Flattery won't get you out of this awkward morning after conversation. That made him laugh for real this time, the tension in his shoulders easing. We both sat up slowly, disentangling ourselves. The bed creaked quietly as we adjusted. He swung his legs over the side and rubbed his face with both hands. I should make coffee, he mumbled. Yeah, before Liam wakes up and wonders why it smells like secrets in here. He gave me a look. You're not gonna make this easy on me, are you? Nope, I grinned. But I'm not running out the door either. He stood and stretched, his t-shirt riding up slightly, revealing the kind of body that made it hard not to stare. He caught me looking, smirked, but didn't say anything. Instead, he reached for the door handle and paused. You can come out whenever, no pressure, and thank you for last night. Thank you, I said, and then he left, quietly closing the door behind him. I sat there for a second, alone again in the room. The air felt different now, not just because of what had happened, but because of what hadn't. There hadn't been anything impulsive or reckless, just two people sitting in the quiet, finding something between the noise. Still, reality was waiting just down the hall. Specifically, a certain best friend who had no idea that his dad had slept in the same bed as me last night. And sooner or later, that was going to matter. I waited a few minutes before leaving the room, half expecting to hear voices from the kitchen. Liam's usual early morning chatter or the buzz of a blender, but the house was still quiet. I padded down the hallway in my socks, heart thudding with every step. Mr. Carter was in the kitchen, back turned, standing at the stove. He wore the same t-shirt from last night, but it looked a little more lived in now, the fabric wrinkled, sleeves slightly pushed up. He was stirring something in a small pan, eggs maybe. He glanced over his shoulder as I entered. Hey, he said, casually, like we hadn't just spent the night wrapped in some unspoken, careful intimacy. Hey, I echoed, suddenly hyper-aware of the soft thump of my footsteps on the hardwood. He gestured toward the coffee pot. Fresh. Help yourself. I poured a cup and leaned against the counter, taking a cautious sip. It was strong, borderline aggressive, exactly what I needed. The kitchen smelled like butter and something toasty, and for a moment, it felt almost domestic. How'd you sleep? He asked, still facing the stove. I gave a dry laugh. Eventually, pretty well. Same, he said. Didn't expect that. He plated the eggs, added a few slices of toast, and turned to face me, setting the dish on the counter between us. He grabbed a fork, then another, offering me one. We ate quietly. Every now and then, our eyes would meet, but neither of us said what we were both thinking. What now? After a while, he broke the silence. I don't regret it. I looked up from my toast. I mean that, he said. I probably should, right? Considering everything. But I don't, I swallowed, heart suddenly too big in my chest. I don't either, I said. He nodded slowly, like that was what he'd been waiting to hear. Then footsteps thudded on the stairs, and we both froze. Liam's voice rang out from down the hall. Smells like food! You better not be making pancakes without me, Dad. I looked at Mr. Carter, wide-eyed. He raised a brow, a faint smirk tugging at his mouth. Act natural? I coughed, stood up straighter, tried to look like a guy who hadn't woken up holding hands with his best friend's dad. Liam rounded the corner a second later, hair sticking up in every direction, wearing mismatched socks and a wrinkled hoodie. Oh man, you made eggs? He said, heading straight for the counter. You're a lifesaver. Mr. Carter played it cool. You know I can't let you go a morning without protein. Liam laughed, grabbing a plate. Right, because you're obsessed with protein. I busied myself sipping coffee, nodding along like everything was totally, completely normal. Liam turned to me. You sleep okay? I nodded. Yeah, thanks. Guess bed's comfier than I remember. He grinned. Told you. Mom went all in on that mattress before she left. Said I wasn't allowed to have guests sleeping on, discount foam. I chuckled, and for a second I thought, okay, we're fine, it's just breakfast. But as I looked across the counter and met Mr. Carter's eyes, there was something else lingering behind them, something quiet, patient, maybe even a little hopeful. And I knew then, this wasn't a one-night thing for him. At least not entirely. I wasn't sure what it meant yet, or how it could work. But I didn't look away. The rest of the morning played out like a scene from a life I didn't realize I wanted. Liam and I hung out in the living room for a while, watching some dumb action movie while he scrolled on his phone and gave half-attention commentary. Mr. Carter, his dad, popped in and out of the room, sometimes refilling his coffee, sometimes disappearing with his laptop. Every now and then, I'd catch him looking at me from the kitchen doorway. Not obvious, just enough. Enough for me to know he was still thinking about last night. So was I. I kept thinking about the way he sat next to me in bed. The hesitation in his voice. That moment when his fingers found mine in the dark. And now here we were, sitting across from his son like we hadn't shared the most quietly electric night of our lives. Around noon, Liam got a text. "Shit," he said, sitting up straighter. "Chelsea needs me to drive her to her art class. Totally forgot I told her I would." "No worries," I said quickly, way too quickly. He didn't seem to notice. "You can chill here if you want. I'll be back in like an hour tops. Cool?" Mr. Carter came into the room then, arms crossed, pretending he hadn't just overheard that part. "You good with him staying here solo?" Liam asked. His dad gave a slight shrug. "He's always welcome," Liam grinned. "See? Even he knows I'm the worst host." He grabbed his keys and hoodie, then turned back before heading out the door. "Don't let him fall asleep on the couch, Dad. He snores." "Noted," Mr. Carter said with a dry smile. And just like that, Liam was gone. The front door shut, and the house went still. It was like the moment the sound of his car faded down the street, the air changed again, shifted from polite silence into that slow pull I'd felt the night before. Except now, there was nothing stopping it. Mr. Carter stood a few feet away from the couch, hands in his pockets. "You stayed," he said softly. "I did." He took a few slow steps toward me, stopping at the edge of the rug. "I wasn't sure if you would. This morning, it kind of felt like it never happened?" I offered. He nodded. "But it did," I said, standing. Now we were eye level, and for the first time in daylight, I could see him clearly. No shadows, no guesswork. Just a man looking at me like he wanted to say more than he knew how. "I keep thinking," he began, "about how long it's been since someone looked at me without expectations, without history, just saw me. I didn't move. I didn't need to." He took one more step forward, and last night in that moment, I felt seen. "You were," I said. "You still are." He reached up slowly, fingers brushing the side of my face like he was checking whether this moment was real. And then he kissed me, soft, careful, nothing desperate, just the kind of kiss that says, "I've been waiting to know if this was allowed." I kissed him back. When we pulled apart, he let out a breath. Not relief. More like disbelief. "I can't remember the last time I felt something that didn't feel like a mistake," he whispered. I touched his arm, grounding us. "It doesn't have to be one." "I'm your friend's dad," he said. "And I'm not a kid anymore," I said. "You said that yourself." He nodded slowly. "Still, this could get complicated," I smirked. "Yeah, but it already is." And just like that, something shifted between us. Not a line crossed, but a space filled in. We both knew it wasn't going to be easy. But for the first time, it felt like something was just beginning, not ending. The rest of that afternoon was complicated in the best possible way. We didn't rush into anything. No second kiss, no dramatic confessions. Just a shared quietness, like we were both still figuring out how to exist in the space between what happened and what came next. Mr. Carter, David, he told me I could call him that now, made us sandwiches. We sat at the kitchen counter like two guys talking about nothing. Weather, baseball, a Netflix series we both liked. But beneath every small sentence was this new undercurrent. A softness, a tension, an awareness that the dynamic had changed and neither of us was pretending it hadn't. Liam returned after an hour, and the second the door opened, the mood reset. Not fake, not cold, just paused. "You guys behave," he joked, dropping his keys into the bowl near the entry. "Barely," David said, eyes flicking to mine for just a second. That night, I went home. I didn't want to, but I knew I needed to. Staying again so soon would have been too obvious, and the last thing I wanted was to put David in a position where he had to explain anything he wasn't ready to. But before I left, as Liam was upstairs changing out of his hoodie and blasting music through the walls, David walked me out to my car. The porch light was on, the driveway quiet. He stood by the driver's side door, hands in his pockets, that same look on his face from the kitchen last night. Half uncertain, half like he wanted to say a dozen things and didn't know which to start with. "Hey," he said softly, "thanks for not making this weird." I smiled. "It is weird." He gave a short laugh. "Fair, but it's also not," I added. "Not to me." He nodded, looking down for a second, then back up. "I don't know what this is yet. I don't know what it's allowed to be, but I'm not running from it. Just maybe walking slowly toward it." I stepped in, just close enough that he could feel it. "I can walk too." He smiled. It was tired, but real. "I'll call you," he said, and for a second, it sounded like a question. I nodded. "You better." He took a breath like he was about to say something else, but stopped himself. Just gave my hand a squeeze. Brief, firm, meaningful, then stepped back. I got in my car and watched him in the rearview mirror as I pulled away, still standing there in the glow of the porch light, still watching me leave, still holding something quietly brave behind his eyes. And I realized then, driving back through the familiar streets, that this wasn't just some wild story I'd look back on and laugh about. This was something real, something I never saw coming. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something I never knew I needed.